These are the Beatitudes from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, spoken by Jesus as blessings intended to change you and us, blessings that name something that is good and beautiful and might be alive in us. And he says, blessed is that. And at the same time, maybe blessings that we know about things that we know are not in us the way they ought to be. So a blessing and a challenge and a blessing through these words. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. And blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are you, the merciful, for you will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. And blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. This morning we're going to focus on the seventh beatitude. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. So Monday was my first day back from holiday, and I had committed to attend and enjoyed attending a seminar, a day-long thing that was put on by a group of pastors here. We phoned a professor at a seminary, had him come into town, talk all day about how to preach the book of 1 Corinthians. And it was great. But I promised myself before I went there, because I was going to be so focused on that one biblical book, not to bring up what we're doing at New Hope and what about the other book and what about creation and be a troublemaker. Evidently, Carrie Fedorchuk, who attends that seminary, who was going to that same talk, was praying the same thing, that John would keep his mouth shut for this lecture. And so I did, but throughout the day, there were things that were said, and I went, yeah, but, and I just clammed up. And then near the end of the day, we were having a kind of closing conversation, and one guy said something, and what do I do with this? And I kind of jumped in and said, well, maybe you could do this. And the professor guy went, I'm using all my self-control to hold back right now. And it felt kind of awkward, and I felt it was a bit pejorative, but didn't really feel that there. So I ended up saying something. No, I didn't say anything. And then I said one thing, and then the guy who I was talking to, the other guy, he says, John, I want to hear more from you on this. It was like baiting me, right, to say something more. And so I said a little bit more. And he made this comment, and I went home, and I felt really unsettled, and then I started, my pride started swelling, and I felt offended, and I thought, I'm going to write an article, and post it on, no, I'm not going to post it on my blog. I'm going to send it to the denominational magazine and write about this thing that's wrong with our seminary, and I'm going to. So I had it half written on Tuesday morning, when I then realized, okay, what beatitude are we on? Oh yeah, blessed are the peacemakers. So this is in me. I do this way, way too often. And I'm sure, if you think about it, it's in you too, right? You want to defend yourself and punch back and show them that they can't walk all over you. And surely we should feel this way. I mean, we believe in human rights in our Western world, and people ought to be able to defend themselves, and no one deserves to be bullied or taken advantage of. And those who hurt others ought to be stopped, and evil ought to be stopped. And so we fight back. And Cain kills his brother Abel because he deserves God's loving acceptance of his sacrifice as much as his brother did. And Moses kills an Egyptian overlord because slavery is wrong and abusing slaves even more so. And Joseph's brothers sell him into slavery because a father ought to love all of his kids equally and not one above the other. And Peter pulls out a sword in the Garden of Gethsemane and cuts off a soldier's ear because Jesus wasn't a criminal. He'd done nothing wrong. And the Serbs exact their revenge on the Croats, and the Croats on the Serbs. And the Armenians lash back at the Turks who hurt the Armenians. And the Americans and the Western allies hit Afghanistan hard because they hit us hard. And you nail that person to the wall for doing that to you, physically or mentally or verbally. Or you file a lawsuit or register a human rights complaint. You slam somebody behind their back with gossip, and you do it again and again and again to get back at them. Or if you're courageous enough, you punch them in the face with your fist or with words that are maybe even more damaging. And we exact vengeance upon vengeance upon vengeance upon vengeance again and again and again in our world, and we create an eye for an eye world, as Gandhi said, and we're all left blind. And to that kind of ever vengeful and violent world, Jesus says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." And later on in that same chapter, "Do not resist an evil person. If someone strikes you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also." And then later on, even worse, "Love your enemies." Your enemies. Love them. So we're all called to be pacifists, Jesus? I mean, even the Bible has stories where God instructs his people to fight back and defend themselves. And so much so we've created a theology of just war. Is Jesus saying we should never, ever stand up for ourselves? I don't think so, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he's calling us to be ridiculous in this regard. And that doesn't mean take abuse if you're being abused. So I don't know what the answer to that question is, but what I do know is that he is calling us to be more that way than we normally would be by nature. Can we agree on that? That we can be more like peacemakers than we are right now. And I know for sure that when I act in ways that are commensurate with the blessing of this beatitude, I am more like him. And I am more like myself, surprisingly. And I'm more human. And my heart grows. And I'm more a child of God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. When you do it, you'll be more like him, our Father. So how do you do it? How do we become more like peacemakers, more like him, Jesus? For me, it always begins with understanding how exactly, kind of unpacking the nature of peacemaking. And by understanding how it works, it just gives me more to kind of let it work within me. And so a quote from the movie Gandhi came to mind that Philip Yancey captured in an old book called The Jesus I Never Knew. The movie Gandhi. Who's seen the movie Gandhi? Older movie, but still a great movie, eh? Like, that was fantastic. The movie Gandhi, Yancey writes, contains a fine scene in which Gandhi tries to explain his philosophy to the Presbyterian missionary Charlie Andrews. Walking together in a South African city, the two suddenly find their way blocked by young thugs. The Reverend Andrew takes one look at the menacing gangsters and decides to run for it. And Gandhi stops him. Doesn't the New Testament say if an enemy strikes you on the right cheek, you should offer him the left? And Andrews mumbles that he thought the phrase was used metaphorically. I'm not so sure, Gandhi replies. I suspect he meant you must show courage. Be willing to take a blow, several blows, to show you will not strike back, nor will you be turned aside. And when you do that, it calls on something in human nature, something that makes his hatred decrease and his respect increase. I think Christ grasped that, and I have seen it work. When I posted that on Facebook, a friend posted Eddie Vedder's line, I'll keep taking punches until their will grows tired. And whether it's a will to hurt versus respect, like Gandhi refers to, or just their will in general, I don't know. But Gandhi's approach to take a hit freed a nation, right, of British colonialism. And there's power in this idea that Gandhi got from Tolstoy, that Tolstoy got from Jesus. By lovingly taking evil into yourself and not responding in kind, you disempower and you destroy it. Part of you dies, but it dies with that part of you. If you were to retreat and run away, then evil wins because you ran. If you were to engage in retribution, same thing happens. Evil wins because it's propagated. But by standing your ground and turning the other cheek, the cycle of evil ends with you. Evil gets mulched up in the heart of a peacemaker. And that works. Martin Luther King Jr. had some weaknesses, but one thing he got right, against all odds, against all instincts of self-preservation, he stayed true to the principle of peacemaking. He did not strike back. Where others called for revenge, he called for love. The civil rights marchers put their bodies on the line before sheriffs with nightsticks and fire hoses and snarling German shepherds. And that, in fact, was what brought them the victory that they had been seeking so long. Historians point to one event as the single moment in which the movement attained a critical mass of public support for its cause. It occurred on a bridge outside of Selma, Alabama, when Sheriff Jim Clark turned his policemen loose on unarmed black demonstrators. The American public, horrified by the scene of violent injustice, caused something of respect to well up within them. At last, gave assent to passage of a civil rights bill. This is the way to be a child of God, Jesus says. This is how evil is stopped, Jesus says. Trust me, he knows. I know, he says. I could have defended myself before Pontius Pilate. I could have called down 10,000 angels while on that cross. But for my Father in heaven, that was not the way to make the peace again. And so Jesus took the taunts and he heard the lies and the gossip and the hits and the death and took all of the evil of this world, of the cosmos, into himself. And the peacemaker that was the Son of God mulched it up, and it stopped there. Moral change is not accomplished by immoral means, writes Phil Yancey. Moral change, as evidenced by Christ, is accomplished through selfless love for your enemy.